Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, hope you had a really good Christmas. We're approaching New Year's and I thought I'd treat you with another little video. Again, not a battle, this is more of a discussion, and actually this is something that I'm very interested in. How do people rate maps? Now, it's obviously very subjective, and as you can see there's a lot of disparity in opinion, and I can't wait to show you my thoughts as well. But essentially I did a survey where if the people thought the map was great, put green, good, orange, bad, red. So for example, the dam, as we can see, is dominating with the red, and Snowcastle's dominating with the green. Suwalki is nicely there in the middle with the orange. I've also told people that, if you just think it's okay, sort of basically in between good and bad, like average, just to not reply. So you only see the strongest sort of opinions. I didn't want to clutter it too much. So what I'm going to do is literally for the next however long this video is, 40 minutes I guess, go through this massive condemonium of maps. And I mean, there's 19 maps in the game if you didn't know. There's some really great ones in here, and some not so great ones in here too. But we're going to look at the map, we're going to look at the map in-game, and then we're going to talk about what the overall opinion of it. So, without further ado, let's go in reverse alphabetical order. So, as we obviously, Baltiisk is one of my favorite maps, spoiler. It is the start, and the end is actually over here with the dam. So we're going in reverse logical order, and yeah, let's have a look at some opinions right here. Before I talk about this, let's take a look at the map. I gotta say, this beautiful map has actually really grown on me. I used to be very much in the absolutely hate it side of the camp. Wasn't a big fan, but it's really grown on me, and there's a few reasons for that. Obviously, there's the AI getting out some of its units. Now, the thing is, I like a map that's obviously got a Lima objective on it, but what I mean specifically with that is the fact that it's not just my name, obviously, it's the fact that there are so many points to capture that it spreads the play out quite nicely. Also, small cramped maps do tend to have like a tendency of being very bomb heavy, very prone to American air power domination, and nukes as well, obviously super devastating on small tight maps. However, this one I do actually really like. This part is probably my least favorite, but ironically, right next to it, this little bridge, this dam, the dam itself, is actually my favorite part. I do really like this aspect of the map. I do absolutely love throwing in an Su-24 with clusters and firebombs on this bridge as well. It just really adds an interesting dynamic, but at the same time America isn't limited to, or like the opposition isn't limited to just that side of the map, that bridge. They can obviously swim across if they have amphibious, but also helis are really easy to get across too, so it really isn't the end of the world. It's a very dynamic map. I mean, there's a lot of movements. I think most of the time the left side you will win. The middle is obviously dominated by this side, and then for this side it is a 50-50, just depending on how well the team plays. So I think, in essence, this huge map does give you a lot of flexibility to do a lot of random stuff. There is scope for flanking, although a little bit less, but ultimately, with such a huge map, there's a lot of variety of gameplay. I mean, I haven't seen too many battles for this side of the map, but that's also a really good option, and maybe players should start doing it. I suppose the other really good aspect of this map in general is the fact that I think it does test your skill. It tests your skill, your ability, and sort of, your actual game. More or less, how well you play does determine the outcome, as opposed to being overly dependent on your teammates. Because in a lot of situations, you are going to be 1v1 or sort of 2v2 kind of thing. So yeah, that's why I actually quite like this map. Now, just very quickly, I do really want to quickly talk about the maps themselves. So, for those who didn't know, the maps are split into grid squares, and each grid represents a kilometer. So, a kilometer by a kilometer, there you go, kilometer squared, which is pretty standard for most military maps in general. Now, it's interesting for me to see that most of the maps are going to be sort of between 2 and 7 or 1 and 8 kind of thing. The dam is one of the larger ones, but when we look at the, you know, like a size comparison from the dam to example Suwalki, there we go, we see that actually all 8 grid squares are used. So maps are actually surprisingly roughly the same size, even when we look at Baltiisk, which is obviously a tiny map in terms of actual playable area, but the surrounding aspect of it is still pretty huge. And I think that's they try to be consistent, I think, especially for fighter reinforcement time, because you want your fighters not to get shot down on spawn, etc. So yeah, there we go. There's the explanation behind the grid square and the map layout. But yeah, ultimately, let's have a further look, a closer look again at the dam. So yeah, so there's my thoughts on it. I think, yeah, how do we look at this? Okay, let's click at others. Essentially, what is obvious is the fact that this map is pretty unpopular for most people. So yeah, obviously we've got a few regulars of the channel. We know that Zeltix, War Dodger, and Dan play with me quite frequently, and they're not the biggest fans. Like, I've put it that I actually think it's okay. The thing is, I used to be firmly in the hate category, right? I used to be bang on that red button, absolutely hate it, but it has just really recently, I have grown to really like it. I do really enjoy a lot of spawn points. I think the biggest shame about some maps, like Oil Rush, Wink, which we'll talk about later, is the fact that they've shrunk it. And the dense sort of crammed meat grinder gameplay isn't really my favorite thing in the world. So there we go. By the way, I am going to be ranking all of these maps 1 to 19, A to Z, trying to make them in the perfect order that I think that these all should go. Which is going to be really tough. I mean, obviously I've given it an orange, so it's in the middle. Well, it's actually just slightly above average, you know, so it's good. I don't think it's average, I think it's good. So there we go. It's actually in the top half. But yeah, we're going to have to look at a few more maps to see before I can start ranking it. So I thought long and hard about how to, actually put this, you know, in a visual ranking sort of way. I did consider the Cool Wall, which will be making an appearance someday, I promise you. Feel free to check out the other video. The Cool Wall is cool and good fun. But there we go. I've come up with this color system. So obviously green is great, good and bad, and anything in between, sort of on the margins of that, is going to go. So this order might be reshuffled. I'm using some amazing technology called Google Slides. Oh no, that's Google Slides. This is Adobe, which is what I use for all my thumbnails. Fun fact. But yeah, anyway, yeah, I think the dam used to be here, right? But it's kind of here now. We'll put it closer towards the left side because I don't want to, you know, there's some pretty good maps. There's some awful maps there too. You know what? Why don't I just stick it for now? Slap bang in the middle, and we'll call it a good map, and we'll see what the others, how the others affect its position. Okay, we've rambled enough about the dam, right? So dam, god damn it, let's move on, Jesus Christ, right? Suwalki Gap is next. Now, I haven't voted because to be honest, I'm still figuring this map out. I know it's been more than 6 months since this game's been released, but as we can see here, there's a really mixed opinion. People do think it is just good, mainly. Some people think it's great, and some people think it is terrible. It's a very tough one for me, because I also kind of have a love-hate relationship with it. Which is, again, the reason why I haven't put it. I think it is probably just down the middle with, it's, you know, it's alright. It is very much alright. Now let's dive into the map, and let me talk a bit more about it. Okay, so here we are, Suwalki Gap, a very familiar site. It has been used. I have played on this map quite a lot. Now, it is a large map, very large on the peripherals. It's kind of big in the actual playable where all the contact and action takes place. But yeah, there's a lot to talk about it. Now that I'm getting a bit more established, I didn't really know how to approach this video, I'll be honest. I think there's a lot of very interesting angles that we could take. So yeah, I am kind of just winging it, and you know, there's a Juliet but no Lima. Okay, they both look like I on my screen. India and Juliet look the same, which I think is a bug. Anyway, one capture point short of Lima. I think that is Lima is the magic number. So what's that? A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L. Okay, so 12. 12 could be the magic number of cap objectives, I believe. I don't think this map would be amiss with an objective potentially right in here. It would just spice things up a little bit more, because this kind of is usually full of units, but people get really, sort of obsessed with this sort of arc or this arc. And whilst there is stuff in the middle, it's sort of a forgotten zone, which I think, yeah, this might be a really nice objective just to throw in, just to keep everyone sort of engaged, I suppose, or sort of maybe an objective just here, a tiny one in between these two buildings. Now that would be a good shootout with cover from both of these Soviet bloc buildings. Right, okay, what do I like about this map? I mean, quite a lot. It does have a lot going for it. I do actually really enjoy the scraps for Delta. It can turn a bit one-sided early on, which is unfortunate, but otherwise it's actually pretty good. I don't mind the Delta side at all. It's also interesting that I should quickly mention, the update has brought in allied AI, which I don't know why it took them so long to throw in, but we do have it now. Who uses a tour? Nobody, apart from AI, clearly. But yeah. It's in the game, but I'm still never use it. Right, I do actually really enjoy Alpha as well. The bit that I'm not the biggest fan of is essentially this part right here, just because you can get hit from 3 different directions. When you're fighting this way, you can get hit from here, here, and here. And when attacks come from the forest, you can find yourself fighting 1 against 3 quite a lot. I think it is actually quite a good map. I do enjoy playing on it in certain conditions. I think you do have to have a good 5-stack team. And yeah, I think there are some aspects of it that just, I don't know, it's sort of, it is one of the very first maps I think I played ever on this game. We'd have to look back through the recordings, but I do really like the scope of flanking, but also there's not much benefit to flanking because all the stuff tends to be concentrated, all the backline stuff tends to be concentrated back here. Similarly with, this side, stuff is always here. There's a lot of, this map is very prone to airstrikes, MLRS, and artillery. Again, this is a love-hate relationship, and all these skyscrapers, whilst they're good for, long-range units, it just doesn't seem to be that important, Skyscrapers are important, as we've seen in modern conflict. Not skyscrapers, but concrete blocks of flats. They basically are bunkers. Remember that German World War II bunkers are made of concrete, just like these guys. Reinforced concrete. Like I say, I do really enjoy this side of the map. I really like the scope of flanking around here. The center, not so much, and I guess Alpha's okay. This sort of area, though, I absolutely detest. I just hate it. I hate it so much. Oh, enemies capturing Foxtrot. Cool. Anyway, that's my thoughts on the map. Let's have a look at what other guys have been saying about it. So again, when we switch to Discord, here we are. So yeah, again, a lot of people do think it's good. I think it's just alright. And I'm going to stick with my guns on that one there. So when it comes to Suwalki, yeah, I haven't put the white column in, but I actually prefer the dam over Suwalki, which you guys might think is outrageous. And if you do, why not? Let me know in the comments. That's fine. But I am going to stick that map here. Boom. Done. Snow Castle is next. Alright, I am going to have a quick sneak preview. I mean, I love this map. I love this map so much for many reasons, which we're going to talk about in a second. People hate it. Now, that is very surprising to me because I really don't see many flaws with it whatsoever. 3 people, obviously again a minority, but most people think it's good, and obviously the majority thinks it's, well, agrees with me. Rightly so. So yeah, let's have a look at that. Here it is. What a beautiful map. Yeah, I love the snow effect. It is really cool, and it's nice that it disappears mostly when you get a bit nearer or when you move. I really like that. Attention to detail is important. Now, of course, what is the best part of Snow Castle? The snowy castles. The 2 castles that actually face each other. So, I can't remember. I think this is Russia and this is Lithuania? Estonia? Christ. You know what? Yeah, I can't remember, but essentially this is an actual real border crossing. This bridge is a border between two nations, which is cool. Don't think those bridges exist. That's probably too much. But anyway, what I really enjoy about this map is obviously its size. Again, it is a very large map. There's a lot of scope for flanking, which you guys know I absolutely love. Maybe a bit too much, to be honest, because the border does actually go all the way to here, which is a bloody miles away from the action. So yeah, it is a bit silly. But I have thrown in some Mi-28s with double igglers, you know, some killer eggs with their stingers into the back spawn, and it does cause havoc, so I enjoy that aspect. But I really enjoy the actual layout of the city as well. It's very fun to play against. There's a lot of back and forth. There's a lot of interesting ways that you can attack this objective. For Bravo, it is a bit, basically, yeah, ooga boogie down this road and pile into Bravo. Similar for this side, ooga booga into Charlie, into Bravo, and take the objectives. Now, Alpha is actually, again, you can ooga booga down this road, but you can set up ATGMs over here, which is pretty good too. So, Alpha is the more interesting one for me. Also, it's a castle. Castles are cool. That church is really cool too, to be fair. It is just a cool, enjoyable map. I also do find it to be quite balanced. So yeah, let's look at the other side. Why has this gone into a star shape? That's a bit weird. Juliet's a really interesting objective as well, because sometimes it's not even worth fighting for. Which also really adds to it, I think, because whilst it's got a really cool layout, there's a lot of little factories, a lot of urban and wide open spaces to fight in. It's sort of, you know, it's only one objective. You can do a lot more with these multiple objectives instead. So it does create an interesting decision for your fifth player, whether to take that point or to leave it and concentrate on these 3 points instead. So I do really enjoy that very interesting aspect of play. It's really interesting to see AI open like this, with just dropping the Razvedka off and then just hovering. Yeah, okay, that's a bit bizarre. Yeah, what else do I really like about this map? Yeah, again, the fight for here is really cool because you can make some good pushes through the forest. Obviously, you can defend it with infantry really well. There's good fights for around here. It is a little bit arty heavy, a little bit, I would say, but not to a devastating, crippling level where you can't really enjoy the game. Now, I mean, when we talk about what the worst sides of the map are, I'm not really sure. I just really like its design. I like that these, again, I just love tall concrete buildings, clearly. I like the wood blocks, I like the layout. Yeah, it is just a super cool map. The water in here is fine. And this little sort of dipped bit is actually really cool to play. If you can micro a helicopter to just keep dipping up and down in between this bit, it's a really cool thing to do. This bit, there's action here. There's action everywhere. There's action in this side of the map. Literally every part of the map can really get used, and you can even have fights out here, which I have done before. Obviously not as common. Anyway, great map. It is absolutely going in. It is going to be one of my top 3. That's for certain. So let's stick it up on the board here. There we go, Snow Castle. You can get yourself a nice lovely place right towards the top right. There we go. Lovely map. Alright, yep, you must recognize this map immediately. It is Ruda. Again, a map that I personally have a very love-hate difficult relationship with. Again, it's a massive map. It takes a really long time for reinforcements to get into it. And there's just a lot going on. I'll talk about the worst parts of the map first. I hate this bit. This bit I just absolutely hate. I hate Delta especially more than anything. These parts especially are just absolute meat grinders. You essentially either special forces and they're gonna win, or flash with their fire. It's gonna rip apart infantry. Your vehicles are kind of useless, and there's just always vehicles and RT going down range here. I hate it. This part, I never know what's going on. Apart from Ooga Boogering, there's just not much fighting going on. India, there is a little bit more interesting scope, but up on these hills with, line of sight being buggy, like what is that? What is that? There's some buggy shenanigans going on with this side of the hill. It can be a bit more exciting to take it, but there's also no real reward for taking these high ground positions because, again, your line of sight is really bad. So when the troops come down this way, it's not that good. You can't fire on them really because even javelins or other ATGMs aren't going to hit in time before they lose line of sight, which is a bit annoying. So you can't really do much with all this ground. There's no, high ground. Obi-Wan taught us that high ground is really important, right? But you just can't do anything with it. You can take the high ground, but you can't do anything with it. Similarly, if you're attacking this way, high ground really doesn't give you much advantage because you won't be able to fire on much of the units there. So essentially, you are just stuck in a battle sort of down these two avenues, which I think is a bit boring. It's a shame that this can't be used more. Massive shame. It also kind of makes the purpose of flanking just a bit pointless, which, again, is something I love doing. This side of the map, especially the middle, now I really enjoy this. For some reason, this just clicks with me really well. Again, it'd probably be nice if there was an objective here, for example, the car park. I don't know why you need to, what the military purpose of capturing a car park is. Maybe a field hospital or a helicopter landing ground, but helicopters can land anywhere, so yeah, that's not important too. Cool monument. Right. This part of the map just really works. I don't know how they've managed to... Maybe it is all about the high-rises. Maybe it really is. That's a ballsy strategy by Aaron there. Very smart bit of AI. When we look at this side, Bravo, yeah, whatever. I don't really care much for Bravo. Alpha, I do find interesting. It's not the most exciting. It's not the most thrilling, but it is actually, it's a decent part of the map. However, for me, if I'm going to play on this map, it's all about here. I really detest and do not enjoy just the shenanigans going on over here. So it is a very tough one for me personally. Other things that you can say is that it is an absolute... It's an endless arty fest. Players have a lot of stuff back here, and on this side of the map, players have an endless amount of arty just sitting here firing non-stop. If you sit still for more than 5 seconds, you are going to get artied. On this side, and basically everywhere. It's a big shame. It's also very prone to airstrikes, or being very dependent on airstrikes, because even though it's such a huge map, your units do get channeled, like we see here. You do get channeled into avenues quite a lot. For example, if you're fighting for Charlie, although I do enjoy it, you do have a lot more options on where to put your units, so you're less likely to get hit. But for things like Delta, you know that troops are going to be here, here, here. It is really that simple. So when it comes to bombing places, your decisions are rather easy and straightforward. Again, with India, you just know that troops are going to be here. So again, maybe the odd troop here. But it's just a bit, I don't know. I actually think that this part of the map would be a lot more interesting if you just removed India. Let's talk about what used to be in the game as well. I don't remember exactly where, but there used to be objectives potentially on the airport, and there used to be just like a weird situation where you'd have like a kind of a fight going on for here, very separate from the rest of the game, which I like. I like the decision making, the team strategy. Do we go for that? Do we not? I actually, I don't like that they're going for sort of mainstream, just everybody battle in this more or less the same sort of place kind of strategy here. I do enjoy the the expansion, the sort of other possibilities on the fringes of the map, etc. So if there was objectives here, again, on the cliff face, which would be, I mean, an airport is obviously strategically super important. Just look at Hostmel, what was it called? Basically the Kyiv airport. Again, let's not talk about too much about current affairs, but obviously airports are super important for any sort of war or battle. So it sort of pains me that whatever this little village is, a logging camp of some sort, is considered important, whereas this huge airport is not. So there we go. There's my thoughts. I do have a love-hate relationship with it, as I like to say. So when we look at people's votes, I've put good, just because I do think it is enjoyable. I do think it's decent. I definitely don't want to put great, and I definitely don't want to put bad, and I don't want to put average, because it is a map that stands out, that's for sure. So a couple of people hate it, and I understand why, and a lot of people absolutely love it. I don't understand why it's such a dominance for love with this map, but fair play to you. I can't agree with you, But hey, that's democracy for you. So I was actually quite surprised by the results of the scores here. Look, when it comes to me rating it, it's not as good as Suwalki, it's not as good as the dam, but it's also not. It's definitely not boring. It's just an endless sweat fest. I guess I gotta put it sort of here. Is a fairly... Also, what a weird, ugly flag this would be. I guess sort of there is where I'm going to have to stick it for the time being. And there's obviously all the other maps ready to be put onto the board. And Riga Airport is next, and you know what? I love Riga. It's going to be in this side, but let's not spoil it. So, looking at Discord now, I really love Riga, and it's actually super surprising for me that the majority just think it's good. So, obviously, we're going in the right direction. People do think it's good or great. Again, majority is just good. But I am surprised. It's always interesting to see how you perceive maps versus how, well, the majority or other people see it. Now, for me, this is one of the simplest, loveliest, greatest maps in the game. Let's have a look at it in-game. What we have is just a great selection of places to fight. I enjoy fighting on the left. I enjoy fighting in the sort of middle. I really enjoy fighting in this area as well, although potentially not as much as the extremes. Charlie. Great fight for Charlie, and great fight for Hotel and India as well. I actually think this is such a simple, lovely map, and you can have occasionally a few fights down the runway. Obviously not with planes. Also, can I just say, this is very dangerous to put this building right next to the runway. If a plane... That's going to clip the wings of any large cargo plane. Very, very silly airport design. That can't be real. Dispersal with hangars here. Cool. Right, okay, so the thing is, with this map, there's actually so much variety. And again, that's what we enjoy about gameplay, isn't it? It's not to have the same repetitive meat grinders, it's to have a bit of variety. And like I say, I can happily play on any aspect of the map. I actually can't point out any flaws with it. Potentially this terminal. No, because actually, no, that adds in a very different... Nah, I can't even criticize the terminal. It throws in a very interesting, different type of play with obviously just combat engineers storming these buildings non-stop, but it is interesting. There's a lot of scope for variety. You can literally attack runway here, this way, flank into Charlie, etc. Units do kind of sometimes get built up here, and obviously all the support does lay here. For this side of the map, this forest is going to be chock-a-block of packs, arty, as is this sort of area. But I've even managed to have, I don't know if you guys watch all my videos, but I had like a really good battle where he kept trying to push troops this way as opposed to Foxtrot, which was heavily fortified by myself, and I had to really fight for this flank here, which I thought was really interesting. It was a really nice variety. I've also been flanked so hard that I've had to basically defend over here and fight for this part of the map, which was a really good effort by that flanking player who just would not give it a rest with his flanking efforts. I respect that. I really do respect that. I've occasionally had fights for this sort of area, and the enemies pushed me back, and I have pushed enemies back to this area. There's just so much going on. Kozlik Rush, yeah. That's what the AI is doing there. Go on, Vlad. I hope that's not who I think it is. But yeah, with Kozliks, you can obviously push into here. Okay, yeah, I have just remembered the worst part about the map. I think it's not the map, it's the game, but bridges, oh my god, are bridges so damn broken. Bridges are terrible. Yeah, I mean, when units get stuck on it, it makes me rage. There's also some line of sight issues. Now, I'm not sure that I'm going to be able to remember exactly where the line of sight issues. Yeah, look at that. Why can you not see leftwards? Yeah, that is ridiculous. This is very broken. This is very, very broken. It's very painful to see this kind of stuff. So, basically, if you're here, you can happily shoot this way, but if you're here, you can't shoot back. That is very painful. Heartbreaking stuff. Okay, pro tip, if you're going to attack, don't attack directly this way. Obviously, you should be able to. That's not a you problem, that's a game problem. So, yeah, terrible. Terrible, terrible, terrible. But mostly, I think it is okay. I think you don't. Yeah, there's yeah, same sort of issues here, which I don't really understand. I mean, I know there's some little bushes here, but wow, in reality, an infantryman is not going to be able to. Whoa, is not going to be able to shoot through that much level of foliage. Yeah, if I'm a machine gunner, I will obviously randomly spray and pray, but you're not going to get any effective fire down range, are you? Okay, the line of sight issues are, I suppose, potentially a real reason why people... Oh yeah, battles for here. You can get so many battles for here, even though there's nothing here. You can get, yeah, really good dynamic maps. So it is one of my favorites, and I just wish, I hope that they're in the future updates, etc. patches. I know they're working on it already, but line of sight is a major issue that urgently needs to get fixed. That is absolutely shocking. Overall, though, a fantastic, great map. We are absolutely gonna overrule. I don't think it's as good as Snow Castle though, but we are gonna absolutely overrule the vast majority of my Discord guys and put it in the great category, because Lima's always right. Next is Oil Rush. Okay, Oil Rush is, yeah, not my favorite map. I think a lot of people hate it. I really don't understand how some people love it. It does have some, in all fairness, okay, it does have some really redeeming features. Some features that I do really like. Okay, so we're actually waiting this time for 20 seconds for the game to load in. This is how I've been filming, it's just on skirmish mode. I have actually had some really fun games on this map, but I still I do hate it. It's boring, it's repetitive, and it is the same battle every single time, just slightly different. For example, if you're playing on this side, it makes sense for you to attack the right hard and defeat Golf, potentially, thereby winning. I mean, it does all circle around Delta, right? Because you're going to have these three objectives, the enemy team's going to have those three, and Delta's the play for. I think that's boring. You can never really break through. Of course, there's always exceptions, but usually you don't break through to Alpha that much. The enemy player can't really push that hard. If you're playing this way, you struggle to take Bravo. You really need to be just super defensive on the left flank here. And essentially, 90% of the games are the same. Again, aesthetically, I just don't like how it looks. I mean, it's cool to have all these oil rig stuff, all these oil drums or whatever they're called, but it's a bit samey, isn't it? It is a bit repetitive. I don't like it. What you do is you put lots of troops in these tree lines, in these buildings, same for these guys, just in the buildings, troops, and occasionally one big ooga booga push onto Delta. Now, I don't really remember how it used to be, but you used to have a lot more objectives here, and again, this could be a humongous map. It's obviously been halved, as you can see on the bottom left here. It's, yeah, you can see that this used to be very playable, and again, I really like the asymmetry. Asymmetric balancing is good. We shouldn't make the factions samey, and we shouldn't make maps symmetrical and samey. We should have them a lot of variety. I have no idea how the fight in here would go. I suppose it'd be great to take a deeper sort of look at it, which we can do, sort of breaking the game by zooming in. It looks very interesting, and there's a lot of high-rises that, I do really enjoy playing in. And this sort of main road, I quite like the artery leading through the whole thing. Apart from, again, on this map, it's all about Delta in its current state. There is some limited scope for flanking. Apart from units do tend to be spread out basically all the way to the edges of the map, so it's very, very limited. But if you've got a Ghost Hawk or Comanche, why not just chuck it in? Again, all this wasted space is literally just that. Like, you've got all the way, like, again, what is the purpose of having this part of the map even open, I would argue? It kind of makes it boring. Why don't we just have a spawn objective here? I think that'd be more interesting. The single spawn back here just does make it a bit repetitive. Single spawn maps aren't really my favorite in general. Obviously, again, lots of exceptions, always exceptions to this rule. But Again, it just feels repetitive, samey, and there's not much to do. I've really tried hard to do like flanking stuff just for my own entertainment and obviously to make good content, but I just, you know me. I don't like meat grindy battles just for one same objective. I think that's super boring. And unfortunately this map just tends to do that. We did have a really good game where we threw in like 10 nukes in a game or something on this map, and that was fun, but that's literally the only time I can think of that I've enjoyed playing here. So with the overwhelming hate, again, really weird, I think that some people absolutely love it. Yeah, I really don't understand where these results are coming from, but for me, this is an absolute terrible map, and we're going to stick it, you know what, we're going to stick it right here as one of the worst maps in-game, in my opinion. Okay, Meandering River, again, I really don't know about this one. I haven't voted because I just really don't know, not because I think it's alright or anything, well, it is alright, I suppose, but it seems to be actually quite popular, which is surprising because I don't really see this being voted for much at all. Here we go. I hate the zombie music. Halloween was so bloody months ago. Get rid of that soundtrack. I wish I knew how. Right, this is a huge map, but it's actually one of the rare situations where I think it is way too big. Again, when we do, I don't know, this little test of mine that I like to do now, where we look at how far away the corners of the map are from the action, this is huge. That is a huge bit of ground that is just absolutely useless. Again, there's these huge forests, which I think forests are cool and stuff, but if you're ever going to try to move around the left, there is no option for you to move through forest. That's going to take an insanely long amount of time. So again, it just sort of leaves you with the option of this road. So it kind of makes you think, what is the bloody point of all this open space? Yeah, okay, helicopters can flank, but that's just a bit ridiculous to ask you to cover all this area when it's not even in use. So dead ground, which is what we'll call that, it's a waste of space. I'm not really sure that I'm happy with it. Potentially a border just here would work absolutely fine. Now, again, probably one of the first earliest maps I've played on, and I think I distinctly remember fighting for this side of the map, and it is actually an interesting, it has some really interesting parts. I hate Foxtrot, but these sides and, yeah, these two sides, they're actually okay. There's some interesting elements. A lot of wide open spaces, which is kind of great, but also terrible for armor at the same time. Some decent tree lines here and there, but I mean, ultimately, there's no visibility issues, which I think is really nice. That is a good thing. And there are some dynamic plays. I've had a lot of fun pushing Bravo to Alpha. That is a good part of the map, I would definitely say. Julia can be an interesting zone to fight for. I've even had, again, a few battles here. I won't spend too long talking about every map. I think for some, you can really form your own opinion. And you know what? There are no right or wrong answers. Like I've said, this is a very subjective sort of personal thing. But for me, I do really struggle to actually know what my opinion about this map is. I've rarely played from this side, just as luck has it, and again, I've rarely really played this map at all. I think we can look at, you know, my stats to see which maps I've played, but it's going to be no surprise to you that the most popular map in the game, Baltiisk, is the one that I've played most on. There is no surprise there, but we're going to come to that later. Anyway, yeah, there's a lot of stuff going on. And I think, again, maybe it's too much. When we look in this corner, what is the bloody point of all this ground? If you had a spawn point here, it'd make a lot more sense, because then you can actually try and fight through it. But, yeah, I guess, again, when they're just trying to make it a single spawn point thing, it's not, but for how huge the map is, it may as well be. It does get a bit stale. It does get a bit stale. I've also been a spawn camper. You guys know me, Lima specials, etc. I have spawn camps, you know, dropped STT teams into these buildings, and they just absolutely shred helicopters, which, you know, I like doing it, but I don't think it should be that easy to do what I like to do. So there we go. Very mixed feelings on this map. A lot of people hate it, a lot of people love it. According to my stats, though, it's overall quite liked. I am struggling where to actually put it. I'm just going to put it on the border here. I guess I have to listen to a bit of democracy, Anakin. Star Wars is great. I hope you watch it over Christmas, but it's not as good as Suwalki. You know what? Suwalki needs to be bumped up, and the dam needs to be bumped up too. Meandering River is not as good as Ruda Forest. We're just going to stick it right there, and there we go. Enough said about it. I will try to quickly move on. There is a lot to say about a few maps. Again, a bit controversial one, but I will try to get through them as quick as I can, because there's still quite a few to go. Alright, okay. Klaipeda, based on real location as they all are. Now, yeah, okay, I'll be honest, I'm just gonna have to say straight up that I don't like it. It's super meat grindy and super boring. There is not much dynamic fighting, and it's just back and forth. It's back and forth, ooga booga, spam, back and forth, cruise missile, spam, The only interesting sort of part of the map is this area here. So in between Charlie and Bravo, this sort of area is actually the only bit of the map that actually excites me. Charlie itself is actually a really good objective, so this is the best part of the map for sure. And over here is the worst part of the map. I think it's so boring. You know what? Maybe it'd be fun if you could actually fight for the island, for this island, a bit like Baltiisk. Yeah, no, really not my favorite. I think we should just quickly move on. I think a lot of people are in the same camp as me. It takes a ridiculously long time, because it is actually still a very long map, long in terms of length, not width, worth. Yeah, reinforcements take ages. It seems you want it to feel like a fast-paced map, but it's not actually that fast-paced, and it's an endless meat grinder and an endless air support sort of map. Yeah, I hate it. Let me just save you the trouble of talking about it. I'm gonna put a hate. Again, I really don't get how some people seem to love it or think it's good. I think it's terrible. It is so boring. There's no width. There's no depth. You don't play this map in depth. Like, I have occasionally, you know, from this side attacked onto Delta, and that's the first you get before getting annihilated, and you're beaten back, and you end up in the happy middle again. So there's no width and there's no depth. It's boring. That's simple as. Simple as. Terrible map. On my little thing, we're going to put it over here next to Oil Rush, but it is better than Oil Rush. But again, similar sort of style of map where it's actually surprisingly quite a small actual area of combat. It's time to talk about one of the most controversial love-hate maps of the game, and that is Kaliningrad. Okay, now, yeah, you guys, I am biased. I have been here in real life for the World Cup in 2018, and this was the stadium that I went to watch England versus Belgium. We lost, wayo. Anyway, it was a boring, really boring game. Sunday League's more interesting than that game. I remember it very well. Now, this map, I love it. And I know that a lot of you are going to hate it. Let's quickly have a look at Discord. Yeah, no surprises there. The vast majority hate it. This is what it looks like in real life. Cool. It's actually very accurate to real life. I made a video covering that. And I like that aspect. I like the attention to detail. Now, unfortunately, I think the reason why people hate it so much is because the game sort of obviously encourages you to play for objectives, which means that people basically play 99% of the game in this very tight, condensed area. Now, again, we do have a huge amount of space, huge, not as much as some other maps, on the flanks here to explore. This side, no, because it is way too far away from spawn. Again, I think spawn from here, or potentially even here, would just make this area of the map, which is a good area of the map in some instances. I don't know about these weird hills, but if you remove those hills and put some more buildings, you've got a lot of map to play with. You can actually set up an entire battle group, potentially here, which I know, look, it is far from the action, but it's not as far as the other maps in terms of that diagonal test that I've been doing. This part of the map can be very interesting, but only if you sort of have two players actually kind of playing for it. Most people don't bother. This is the perfect map for amphibious crossings, and yet people just don't like to do them. I'd also say crossing via here would be a really good strategy because you're straight into the heart of enemy AA, RT, etc. Similarly, if you rush helis, etc. into this sort of zone, which is another hot spot for enemy RT, etc., it can be super cool. Very interested to see AI's openers, by the way. Just very curious to see that they just throw in assault men like that, so random, with Super Cobra escort. Why not just charge the Super Cobras forward? Anyway, yeah, interesting strategy, Khan. Let's hope it pays off for them. The biggest problem with this map is the fact that people just hunker down into these positions and don't move. You know, it's obviously, attacking is very high risk, high reward. Most of the time you're going to sacrifice a lot of men just to take the alpha objective, and the game does end up being all about alpha, which is the biggest shame about it. There are so many options and so many different ways to play this map, but unfortunately it does tend to always go the same way. As soon as somebody gets arty out, the enemy team gets arty out, and it's just an absolute standstill, which I hate. I really hate standstill games. Which is unfortunately what the map does tend to become, even though you've got all these areas for crossing. I mean, there's lots of different crossing points that are actually kind of easy to cross. All you need is a bit of smoke and you can pile units in. Obviously with bridges, the problem with bridges is that they do create bottlenecks, which are super easy for aircraft to take out. This is probably the best crossing point because there's actually two bridges in one kind of thing. Yeah, when it comes to taking positions, again, I think just a lot of people don't underuse the ACVs, AAVPs, or the Russian swimming vehicles. Russia has a lot of swimming vehicles, but people don't use them. They don't want to risk crossing the water, which I find mind-boggling. I know I'm sort of prone to that myself, like the BT-IT2 can swim, so can the K-17, you know. There's a lot of options here, a lot of really good options. But people have sort of, I don't know, a standstill. I can't believe that hit from a tank did like 5 damage. That's ridiculous. Cornets worked for once. That's also ridiculous. Yeah, it does tend to be very standstilly, and unfortunately, I have had quite a few boring RT to and fro sort of games. But I do love the map. I think whenever I've done my flanks, my successive flanks, and when people try to flank me, I enjoy it. It's a good little, you know, thing to fight off. It's kind of easy to fight off as well, really. But when people do go for it, it does make it just that way more dynamic. There's so much potential of this map, even though it does end up just being the same old arty fest, which is a huge shame. There we go, get your AVPs, yeah, get them across the water. No, they're just going to spaz out. Okay, the AI is still pretty broken, and that's a big ground assault asking for an F-16. So yeah, I love this map, I want to give it top points, but unfortunately I realized the fact that it does have the same issue of being samey. It is still a great map, and maybe it's the objectives forcing players into similar positions. Maybe if you just get all of these objectives and you just spread them really far out across the entire length, you're going to create a lot more dynamic sort of situations where players can't just 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 set themselves up. People are going to be spread thin, and you're going to have to make actual decisions, tactical, strategic decisions, which is what we want from an RTS, about which objectives you're going to fight for. Because again, it is just very samey, and it all depends on alpha. Wow, what a shootout. So yeah, that's my thoughts on it. I mean, it'd be cool to have an objective here, one here, one here, one here, and similarly, the stadium should definitely be an objective, as should something here, for example. And that's just going to really spread your front line out, make it very wide. So again, we talk about depth. There's no depth really. No one's going to fight for India. It's ridiculous. Occasionally you'll get a flank in. But depth and width. This is narrow and there's no depth. Again, so how can we make this better? Just increase the width massively. There's potential to do it. Let's do it. Come on, Steel Balalaika. I am really counting on you. Or again, if you really want, then really increase the depth, because that's a huge incentive for people to do big flank and capture these positions back here. This area right here could be absolutely crazy. It could be really dynamic. But obviously, it's never used. So there we go. This area here could be really crazy, really dynamic, but again, it's rarely used. So this map has the absolute most potential, but is really underutilized. When I stick it on here, I really want to put it fully in. It's just going to have to touch the orange slightly, because because of essentially the issues we've talked about. So there we go, there goes Kaliningrad. Let's move on to Jelgava Pils. Oh dearie me. Look, I really want to speed this video up because I don't want to be just talking at you for 1.5 hours, even though you might enjoy it. Right, let's just quickly look at the map like this. We don't need to go in the game here. This part is really woody, very aquatic. I think it's bloody boring. Same for this part, same for this part. The only sort of potentially interesting, but it's super urban and super stalematey, is this part. The only exciting part on this map is actually Alpha, with the sort of mix of urban, forest, open spaces kind of mix. Everything else is just really boring, really. Again, there's really a lot of good scope for depth, and you know, the airfields here could be an objective, but again, they really make it narrow and no depth, which just, to me, is super boring. So there we go. I really don't like this map at all. I think you can occasionally have a good game, but when I see this in the voting selection, I do my utmost to not vote for it. Let's move on. Ignalina. Now, Ignalina is a very interesting map. I actually really like it, and this one is worth taking a look at in-game. Okay, shame that the maps appeared at night, but we've got the dreadful zombie music, but let's talk about it. Now, again, we talk about width and depth, right? Now, surprisingly, this actually creates a lot of artificial width by having these foresty areas that are really good cover. So you can move through these areas sort of undetected. It adds an extra layer of width artificially by doing that, which is really good. There can be some really good fights going around these areas. I think the depth, again, I see absolutely no problem in throwing up Bravo, right? It's in a zone that always gets captured. You know what? Let me mute that awful game music. Let me just check you can still hear me. Yes, you can. Brilliant. The game music is terrible. I hate that zombie music so much. Right, Bravo. Very interesting objective, because most of the time it just stays capped for the whole game. Same with Alpha, right? But the creation of this depth just gives you an option to try and do weird flanky stuff and drop off some troops and try and ambush them on the road. It just gives you that option. And the options that we have there are very good. It's good to have more options. More options is better, more dynamic gameplay. Similarly, there's fights for here. Look, there isn't an objective here, but there's often quite a lot of action and combat here. There's also quite a lot of action and combat in these parts as well, which is really, really cool. Very good variety. Hotel, I don't really like to play for Hotel. I don't really know. I don't tend to go this way, but essentially, has the music stopped? Yeah, cool, it has. Alright, so essentially with the map, Echo is the biggest meat grinder, that's for sure. And you kind of have to secure it, because otherwise these channels, these artificial width channels, that are really important, can become a problem. Golf and Foxtrot on this map, so again, we talk about width, we talk about depth, can actually be quite good action points. I do see quite a lot of combat and fighting and strategy for these two objectives, which is really good to see. Again, if you neglect Echo, and that's sort of a choke point for this sort of side of the map, you can get a lot of really interesting things going here. Delta is fine, it's a very interesting point. This part is actually quite interesting, and Charlie is actually quite interesting as well, especially from this side. I think it is just a little bit nicer to play, but you've got the, you've got the 3D environment, not just the 2D battlefield, but you've also got the 3D taller buildings to give you some crossing fire support. So overall, I actually think this is a really good map. It's really good. It's always been a good map in my opinion, and yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and just quickly hold on. So on here, I've put it as good. I don't think it's one of the greats, but maybe I should. Okay, I'll double vote, and when I come to put it on here, I will just absolutely slap it bang on the border. I am saying Kaliningrad's better, which is really controversial, I know. I struggle to do that. Okay, Ignalina is slightly better than Kaliningrad. But I am very biased for Kaliningrad, I know that. Okay, let's move on. Okay, another map that I absolutely have to blitz through. Highway of Death is terrible, and also has so many line of sight issues, it's not even funny. The depth is not real. There's no width. It is a terrible map. I honestly have no idea how anyone can think it's great. I wonder if the same people who do, you know, if we have the polar opposite opinions, that people think, if I think it's terrible, people think it's great, if it's the same people doing that. But I really can't understand why anyone would think this is anything above terrible. Absolutely terrible. Let me just not forget to put this over here. It is a shocking map. It's more entertaining than Oil Rush for me. But yeah, on par with Jelgava Pils. Absolutely shockingly bad. Dead Center. Do we need to have a look? No, you know what? I will come back to Dead Center in a second, but Cold Harbour. I mean, the amount of bugs and stuff in this map is unreal. Again, I'd love to talk about it more, but there is absolutely not a single part of the map that excites me. Not a single part at all. Which is a shame. There is potential here, but ultimately it is a really, really boring map. So let me just move Dead Center out the way and again stick Cold Harbour into the bad. I'd actually wouldn't if these two, actually if Cold Harbour got removed, Klaipeda got sort of widened a little bit, and Oil Rush got expanded to the old sector, I really wouldn't complain. And if Highway of Death and Jelgava are removed as well, I wouldn't complain either. I would not care. Alright guys, only a couple more maps to go. I'm sick of talking. Right, okay, so Dead Center is an interesting map. I kind of love it and hate it. Now I love it because it's an interesting map, there's a lot going on, and the battle can be very dynamic. Again, there can be fights for Alpha, there can be fights for, not Bravo really, but Hotel for sure. Depending on how you strategize, you can actually do really well. And depending on how well you play, of course, as a team, this map is good for that. So it does decide the outcome, depending how well you do. Now the worst parts for sure are essentially here. Essentially, if you nuke, you're going to do really well. But if your nuke does not go through, then that's a big shame. But essentially, it is a huge meat grinder in the middle. And every Tom, Dick and Harry is absolutely going to pound your infantry in this sector, so I absolutely hate fighting for this bit. I much prefer going on the sides. Now the sides are actually quite interesting. I haven't voted on the Discord of what I think about it, because just the meat grinder here really does, it's insane. Playing for this bit really takes it out of me. However, the interesting part is that you can get a bit more width. There's a lot of width, probably a bit too much. I mean, again, we're miles away from the action here in the corners. But you can actually have some decent battles going on for these parts of the map, and over here, Delta can be quite dynamic. I mean, there can be probably a bit too much going on, especially, you know, when you set up flanks here, etc. But no line of sight bugs. Lots of little forests for ambushy stuff, which, you know, I like ambushes. I like using your brain for tactical advantage, which is what this map does allow. There is width, there is depth. Width is a bit narrow, I would say it is a bit narrow, but you do get the 3 different spawn points, which again I think is quite important for helping you to do some good flanky stuff, and for, you know, opening up the gameplay to a bit less of a systematic, repetitive kind of level. It is a good map overall, and yeah, I think just the terrible part about the center is how meat grindy it is, and unfortunately for that reason I just can't even convince myself to give it a good. I am just going to have to go with alright. I tend to avoid it just because I know how horrible the play in here can be, and how demoralizing, sweaty and tiring it is. So again, plenty of scope for flanking though. Again, lots of roads, lots of you might have seen the short I did where you can just absolutely get the helicopters so wide into the back that you just rip apart all the support. But it does tend to be very support heavy as well, which we hate support players on this channel, don't we? So yeah, it unfortunately, yeah, I can't convince myself to give it a really good score. So Dead Center, I am just going to put like sort of here. It is fine. It doesn't deserve to be on the sort of bad list. It doesn't deserve to be touching it, but it definitely doesn't deserve to be put on the great side of the map. Now, a lot of people absolutely love it, and maybe they're just sadistic. I don't understand why you'd hate it. But yeah, maybe they're sadistic with the amount of effort that goes into fighting for the middle. Like, I do enjoy the sides quite a lot, but Yeah, good is probably the better place to put it. Why not? I'll just put my vote in there. Let's move on. Next up is Chkalovsk, right? Very difficult. I think it's an airbase near Moscow, somebody in my comments once told me. It's a great map. There's a lot of stuff going on. It is absolutely great. I don't think we need to spend too much time. You two, Mahmoud and LPO, you are unfortunately just plain wrong. Sorry guys, I love you lots. But yeah, here's the upgraded version, the updated version with all the new capture points. The amount of stuff going on in Juliet is crazy and it's good. Alpha, huge kind of meat grinder, but it is actually kind of entertaining. The depth that you get with Delta and Echo is good. Golf and Foxtrot are also very entertaining sort of points to fight for. I actually think this is my favorite part of the map because it's a bit more sort of interesting, in my opinion. Hotel is actually really good. There's definitely really good width. Again, still scope for flanking, etc. Again, probably a bit too much, but ultimately, this is a really good map. I really do enjoy it, and it's really rewarding to punch through the objective and get into that back line and clear some of that out. So when it comes to Chkalovsk, it's definitely for me. Whoa, have I run out of thumbnails? No, I know there's a couple more to go, so yeah. Chkalovsk can definitely go here. No, you know what? Just clear of the orange, it is a really good map overall. Chernakakovkysky District. Right, okay, what a map. It's actually one of these, I used to hate it, I really used to hate it, and I think most people probably hated this map when they first came across it. However, actually, some parts to really hate are, again, line of sight issues that I know distinctly especially work here, because you want to try and scout this road and protect your flank, but you are usually unable to. Okay. Is it easier to look from this side? Oh, the lighting is terrible. Now, there's a lot going on in this map, and there is a meat grinder for Bravo. Charlie tends to be quite spicy as well, and Alpha can be horrible. But it seems to be, there's not much width, there's not much depth, but there seems to be a lot going on. There's always a lot of action, and yeah, it's a lot of good fighting. Again, deployment zones are really far back, which seems to be a theme with Broken Arrow. They really want you to wait for your supplies, etc., reinforcements to come along, which is fine, but can be a bit tedious. There's a lot of scope for width, although it's not actually used that much. Alpha has so much space, but also all these buildings just provide such good cover for vehicles to transit. So even if you set up a perfect ATGM setup, all these vehicles are just going to use the cover of these buildings and blitz into your lines. It's the same sort of story with Charlie, where there's so much cover with all these buildings that you really can't do too much against Ooga Booga strategies, which is why I think this map is actually just good. It's got potential to be great, but it needs a bit of, I don't know, again, I think objectives could be spread out to increase a lot more width. Again, airfields are important, it should be a consideration for the map. I really would love to see a fight for this bit. I think, you know, it'd probably be good to have a fight for this little bit as well, or the manufacturing facility itself, or this town. There's a lot of stuff that you could do, especially with the spawn point here. It'd be nice to get more units and more of this map actually put to good use, you know, actually engage and using the whole map, because it does seem a bit pointless having all of it if you're only going to fight in this really tiny, dense area. Now, on my Discord, people have mostly voted for great, and only one person hates it. I think it does belong in the good category. I will let it touch the green again, because democracy! But ultimately, again, when you think about how much potential there is for these sorts of areas to actually be used and engaged, it seems wasted, and the bits that are used do tend to be a bit stalematey, which it does let it down somewhat. There we go, as promised, I'll put it just here, touching the green. Wait, am I moving all the maps? I was moving all the maps. So there we go, Chernakakovkysky District belongs happily over here, I think. And yeah, as you can see, Black Coast is up next. Okay, so Black Coast, we've got some mixed opinions. Most people, however, agree with the fact that it's just good. Now, let's have a look at why that is. I think, obviously, the uniqueness of it, right? With this is the most unique part of it. Actually, there's also an objective here. I'm not sure why it's not popped up on the screen. But there's also an objective here in normal 5v5 multiplayer. Right, it's obviously a very unique, cool sort of looking map, and I think that helps. It's nice to have that variety, absolutely. There is some decent depth, because again, you can fight for Bravo Foxtrot, and you can fight all the way to Alpha Echo Delta. I mean, there's a lot going on. You can also fight all the way to Julia if you do well, but either way, you can definitely take India and push Charlie. What I like about this map is there's a huge amount of width, right? And that's really good. Again, remember that there is an objective right about there somewhere. So the width is obviously really nice. There is some depth, although not as much as we can see, but there's probably more on average than in other maps. Again, you do kind of get a lot of air spam in here, but AA has really good firing areas, and there's a lot of parts where you can do a lot of sneaky beaky recon stuff. I actually quite like this town here on the edge as well, because that can be a good little spot for AA and snipers and bazookas, ATGMs, whatever. The most recent game that I had, I ended up walking an army of Cornets and SSO and double Verba GRU across this massive open field, and it looked like a World War I scene where, you know, get all up in a line over the trenches and advance towards the enemy. And that felt pretty cool. And a lot, again, my helicopters managed to use this sort of area quite effectively and into this area. It gave me a lot of options. I was also sort of traveling not as much, but around this way as well as this way, and that's all for one objective, which was Charlie. So using this whole area just to fight for one objective, it's nice. It feels like there's actually purpose to the width of the map, which is good. When you're fighting for this area, there's, again, you can use all this land sort of here. When you're fighting for this area, again, you can overlap and use all this land here. You've got a lot of options. Not many people attack this way, but when I do see attacks come through into here via this road, it works super duper well. Again, when we talk about this side of the map, you don't see too many attacks into the city, but if you can ooga booga your way into the city and take these flats, you're going to be having quite a good time. I've also managed to, well, as always, do some flanky stuff and set up Verba stingers, whatever, into the back of these helicopters, which is fun, and you know what, yeah, again, it allows you to use the map quite effectively. I've even had fights for this area of the map, which, you know, it is good. Again, it's good to have the variety. I think it is a very good map. It's not great, though. And the fact that it's not great boils down to the fact that it does become, over here in the middle, just a absolute meat grinder slogfest. It is very tough. The fights in this area are unbelievably systematic and just a war of annihilation. There's a lot of options about how you fight, but it tends to be the same sort of strat over and over again that people employ to actually engage. With this side, again, remember there's an objective there. It does seem to be, it can be quite dynamic. I think it can either go one your way or not your way or stand still, as opposed to most of the time where the front line is static. So the front line here moves quite a lot. I really like the amount of width they've given us here in this corner. It's really nice. You don't really tend to use these avenues, but they're good options. They are good options. It's really nice to have this level of dynamic play. Again, I think it's kind of popular for people to put an AA system here from that side of the map. It's risky because it's quite deep, but it also means that if there's any helicopters at all on this side of the map, you're going to have a good crack at them, which is really, really nice. So yeah, there's just a lot of options. There's so many options, and again, I'm happy playing for basically any side of the map, which makes this actually, you know what, it's a map that's really, really grown on me. And I think it's actually really entertaining. I enjoy this map. I wouldn't quite go all the way to great. It's definitely not bad. Again, you guys, I'm sorry, but you're wrong. It's a shame that I think it's actually one of the most underrated maps. I still would leave it at orange with good, but I do think it's actually kind of not enough credit is given to it as is due. There we go. There's that Delta objective that should have been there on the map as well. Again, I stumbled upon that dodgy Chinese website, but we'll move on. That was Japanese, actually, I think. That looks Japanese to me. But Black Coast, happy middle. There we go. Okay, Bay of Winds is another one that I am going to absolutely blitzkrieg through. So, it's a good map. There's also, well, this is actually called Lima. I'm not sure this is the latest. No, this might not be the latest model, but there's actually a lot going on. It's wide, but also really narrow at the same time, and there's actually really good depth. I really don't know what to give this because I have had really interesting fights and really repetitive, boring fights on this. So that's why I haven't really given it a good score. I think there's a lot of potential, that's for sure. I think they could potentially experiment with changing up some objectives to try and make it a bit more interesting. Unfortunately, I think there's a lot of attention on this river, which I don't really like. I don't really like the endless forest fighting that comes with it, especially in this area. And I think this area is far too urban. So it's very much a sort of it's a very black and white map where this side is super urban, this side is super foresty, and up here you get quite open spaces with a bit of forest as well, of course. I I want to like this, but I don't. I just, for whatever reason, I don't really connect with this map at all. I don't enjoy playing on it. I know it is popular, which is fine. It's just not for me. It's not for me at all. I don't want to give it bad because I don't think it's a bad map. I don't think it's good either. It's just all right. And you know what? When we move it on the board, I am just gonna, I'll put it sort of just here. You know, let's move some out of the way just so we can see them. Dead center's there. Oh, Baltiisk is hiding back there. That's the next one to move. But hey, spoiler, it's going to go in the green. Bay of Winds is just here. You know, it's sort of, I don't know. It doesn't really tickle my pickle at all. But I'll tell you what does, and that is Baltiisk. Baltiisk is such a phenomenal little map. Super unique as well, yeah. Yep. There is an objective here as well, which is missing. Let's have a look in game. Okay, so here we are, one of my favourite maps of all time, and again, not a surprise that it is the most played map on in the game. Again, it's super unique configuration, I think really helps to that. Obviously, it doesn't make sense that units just spawn on this little random bit, or this little I mean, it makes sense here, as a sort of shipping navy deployment, but yeah, obviously a super cool map, and one of the first missions that you play. I, yeah, I love this map. There's just so much going on. It is a meat grinder, of course, on Alpha. Bravo, Charlie, and, you know, occasionally here. Hotel, which is not marked for some reason, is over here. And it's a really fun part of the map as well. Now, it does tend to be stalematy. There tends to be quite a solid front line here, and not much going on. But for some reason, I just really enjoy playing there. I don't think it is the greatest map on Earth. I don't think it's the most balanced or, you know, the most sort of perfect tactical decision. It is just a big meat grinder, choosing the right units, putting them in the right buildings, and moving them before the inevitable RT and MLRS spam hits you from the opposition. I just really like it though. Despite all of that, there's something about it that I just really do enjoy. Again, I would love to see an objective here because it is quite a viable option to heli flank into here. It'd be good to see an objective here on that fort, you know, like in the in that mission that we saw a really long time ago be introduced, and potentially an objective here. I really would like to see the width because, whoa, what the hell unit is that? Oh, right, okay. Oh, I see. I thought that was like a new special FSB unit or something like that. That really tripped me out for a second. Okay, weird. But by the way, thank you for watching this far, if you still are. If you still are, let me know in the comments below that you are still watching. But even though there is such a narrow, but also wide at the same time amount of area to play on, there's a lot going on, and I feel like the action is just absolutely non-stop. And if you want like a heartbeat-raising sort of map, this is absolutely your guy for it. There is so much going on. I think just a lot more objectives in general would be really good for this map. Delta and Echo really don't do anything. They just exist. But if you had more sort of spaced out in these middle bits, or just like one here, again, you just really force the player to divide their priorities and attention and strategize, as opposed to just blindly meat grinding away. Oh, they're going amphibious. What a bold strategy. I can't believe that this is what's happening. They're going to swim all the way there? I mean, valid strat, I approve. You Lima special yourself, Mr. Iron Max. Yeah, this is very heavy with RT MLRS, and it's a bloody meat grinder. It's so susceptible to endless air power as well. It is actually a huge map when you look at, you know, the edges of it, but obviously the actual playable area is bloody tiny. I think it's no surprise at all that most people love it. A few people do hate it, which I think is shocking. I think people do hate the meat grinder sort of thing going on. People think it's good too, but the majority do absolutely love it. And that's the camp that I'm part of. It is a great map, and it is the most played, so most played for a reason. Let me quickly show you some stats. Here we are on BA Hub. There's also BA Armory, but they don't have this same chart, or maybe I've missed it. But essentially, yeah, this is just the total number of games played per map, and we see that Baltiisk and Riga Airport are absolutely up there in the top 2. Suwalki is 3rd. Oh, by the way, I forgot to do a really important thing, and that's to put Baltiisk here. Again, I'll put it behind Riga and Snowcastle. Interestingly, actually, Snowcastle is... Where even is it? Is it on there? It might be called Central Village. No, is that dead center? Narva. Narva is Snowcastle. Yeah, Narva is a real city. Let me just quickly show you. Narva, Google Maps. There we go. Yeah, so it's the border of which Estonia and Russia. There we go. And there's the map here. There's the Estonian castle, and here's the Russian one called Ivangorod. Yeah, fortress. Really cool. Actually, wait, that picture a second ago, yeah, that's a really cool picture. And there's that border bridge as we have it. Very interesting to see. Yeah, no bridge crossing there, as I'd suspected, and a few crossings here. Anyway, off target. Back on target here, yeah, we see that the most popular maps, well, I mean, when we compare it to here, it's sort of no surprise that I agree with the vast majority of players, I suppose. Kaliningrad is actually really popular in terms of frequency played. Now, don't get me wrong, a lot of that is random, you can't control it, you know, whatever people choose, but when you vote for maps, it is a democracy, and yeah, people vote with their feet, you know, people vote for the maps that they choose to play on. And I think this is a really good reflection of that. I mean, yeah, all of these maps, Klaipeda is potentially the only one that I sort of don't particularly warm to. Is this Klaipeda? No, that's not Klaipeda. Where is it? Oh, Klaipeda's here. Yeah, a lot of people disagree with me there on my Discord too. I really don't like this map. And in all fairness, we can't expect everyone to agree all the time, can we? There is subjective opinion, and in all fairness, you do you, boo. Whatever you think of my opinions, please do share yours, because I would be curious to see the disparities, the different views, and where I am wrong, where I am just plain wrong. I know I've not been the most consistent in this video, and, you know, this is something I've just been winging, to be honest, because no one's ever done a video like this before. So, again, if you're still watching to this point, you're a mega massive legend. Thank you so much. I genuinely really, really appreciate it. So, yeah, good on you. Thanks for your support, to be honest, and I'm glad you find it interesting. But there we go. This is the maps that I've laid them out, and yeah, I will be these votes. I do this kind of stuff with the votes, you know, all the time on my Discord. So feel free to join it. The link is in the description below. We do events as well, where we have like different types of games, like that assault game mode that actually one of my admins threw up. So cheers, Mahmoud the Camel Thief, for throwing that up. You bloody legend. We're going to have a 2v2 competition in the new year, which, yep, we're looking forward to, so feel free to join us for that. Again, links in the description. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you found that entertaining, and I really hope that you subscribe, comment, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.